Welcome to today's webinar, PR Planning for a New Year. My name is Gina Pappas, and I am the Director of New Media at Albers Communications Group. First, let me tell you a little bit about Albers. We are a full-service PR and digital marketing agency headquartered in Omaha, Nebraska, and we strongly believe that PR and digital strategies go hand in hand and work best when used as part of an integrated communication strategy. We represent clients in all 50 states and Canada, where our PR and social media specialists help our clients achieve positive exposure nationally and locally in their operating markets throughout the country. And we have specialized expertise working with companies that have franchises or branch locations in multiple cities. It's kind of a niche of ours. A little bit about me. I'm Gina Pappas. Like I said, I'm the Director of New Media here at Albers Communications Group. Feel free to email me if you'd like to speak in more detail about your company's communications goals, and you can follow me on Twitter, connect with me on LinkedIn. And here's a look at what we'll be covering today. First, I will explain why going through a formal planning process is necessary when determining your PR and digital marketing goals. Next, I will take you through the PR industry's 4-step planning process and explain each step. We will then walk through a case study of an Albers client and show how we were able to help this client use the 4-step process to achieve their goals. At different points throughout the call, I'll be taking 1 to 2 minute breaks from talking for the interactive work session. And during those times, like I said, I will break from presenting and give you time to write your thoughts on the worksheet that we've provided. And lastly, at the end of today's call, I'll answer any questions that have been chatted in. So with that, we are ready to dive in. The purpose of today's webinar is to achieve the following goals. First, I'd like to provide you with a firm understanding of the fundamentals behind public relations planning. In addition, I'll illustrate the systematic process. Like I said before, there are 4 steps that are involved in PR planning. The interactive natures of today's webinar will provide you with an opportunity to start your own PR planning process. And lastly, I hope that the opportunity to start that planning process inspires you to get a head start on making your communication strategy a bigger priority for 2014. Believe it or not, it's already time to think about 2014. So, but what having a plan allows you to do is generate positive media coverage. While it's true that a successful, well-liked small business will probably generate some unsolicited positive media coverage or social media traction, the potential for you as a business owner to drive this activity is huge. And taking proactive control of the exposure your business receives starts with the plan. Having a plan allows you to prioritize your communications goals, budget for the strategies you develop, stay on schedule, and measure your your progress. So when you're beginning the PR planning process, it's recommended that you follow 4 steps, and those are research, planning, implementation, and evaluation. Structuring our planning efforts like this ensures that we put meaningful strategy behind outputs in order to drive business. It also ensures that you know what to evaluate in order to measure your success. And this process allows you to feel confident that the strategies and tactics you execute for your business are rooted in planning and are measurable, which will allow you to establish a benchmark for your future communication strategies. So in the planning phase, which is the first step in that 4-step process, the first thing to do is identify the challenges or problems that your business is facing. And this is an example of one of our clients, Strategic Health Solutions. They were challenged with very aggressive employee recruitment goals due to an increase in business. And as their PR partner, we were able to develop a plan that resulted in them receiving 1,500 resumes over the course of 6 weeks. Our plan included a carefully timed push to the local news media announcing the company's move to a new, larger facility, in addition to including their recruitment goals in our conversations with the media. And this type of proactive PR strategy resulted in television news stories on both the local NBC and ABC affiliates, an article in the city's largest daily newspaper, a 7-minute radio interview with the company's CEO, and much more smaller types of coverage throughout. So it just shows how a goal that you may not see as immediately being tied to PR can still be achieved through media relations and public relations. So as part of the planning process, you will have to do some form of research. It could be something informal like meeting with your key players, and determining your communications objectives, identifying your target audience, or you might determine that your research needs are more complex and require primary or secondary types of research. But what research does is helps you better understand your target audience and allows you to make informed decisions about your strategies and tactics. Developing those is the next step in the planning process. And research is the foundation on which your plan is based, so taking a snapshot of the current landscape is essential for later steps in the PR planning process, the measurement and evaluation phases specifically. So the next step in the planning process is goal setting. And a goal is what you hope to accomplish through your strategies. The goal is the outcome. And in PR, when setting goals, we often use the SMART acronym for our clients. And I'll show you, you can see here what that stands for, but I'm going to walk through each of these. The first one is specific. A goal should be something that is specific. Instead of setting a goal of getting more media exposure, make it your goal to achieve a specific number of positive impressions, for example. It should be measurable. How will you know when you've achieved your goal? Are there any checkpoints that will help you measure your progress? Measuring strategies along the way illustrates what's working and what needs tweaking. Next, your goal should be achievable. Set a goal that you can realistically achieve. The more achievable successes you can rack up, the higher you can set your goals in the future. Should be relevant. Make sure your goals are serving your needs. For example, while being included in a major news story in your newspaper may seem like an obvious way to promote your business, it won't do you much good if most of your potential clients read smaller community papers. The T in the SMART goal acronym is time framed. Your objectives should always be tied to a date. And this will keep you on track and ensure that you don't backburner your goal. And you can set smaller date goals along the way too in order to avoid cramming in all of the steps at the end. But take a look at the sample goal on the screen. By the end of the year, our goal is to increase media impressions by 15%. And this is a SMART goal because it is specific in its percentage. It's measurable because it has a time frame attached to it. It's achievable because with the right PR strategies, it's realistic. It is relevant if we assume that media outreach is a primary strategy for this particular business. And it's time frame because it has a deadline attached to it. I want to share with you a case study example from one of our clients, Sonko. They're a full-service landscape provider. And when we began working together, their goals included increasing their visibility and brand awareness in targeted zip codes, cross-selling their different services to their base of existing clients, earning new clients through offline and online strategies that were integrated, and engaging their clients in the online space. So that's an example of what goals might look like. So this is the first time that I'm going to break for a couple minutes and let you take a minute or two to jot down your goals on your worksheets. It's the second kind of bullet as you see on the worksheet. And identify your problems too if you haven't been doing that along the way. But I will break for about a minute or two and allow you to do that. I'll also take this break as a reminder that if you have any questions, feel free to chat them in and we'll answer them at the end. In addition, there will be a survey that pops up at the end of this webinar, and you will be able to give us feedback because this is an ongoing webinar series for us and we'll be doing more of these in 2014. So we appreciate your feedback on how you feel today's session went and if there are any topics that you'd like to see covered in the future. And I'll break for about 30 more seconds to let you finish the goal portion, and then we'll move on. Okay. We will keep moving on to the next phase, which is implementation. So now that you have goals in place, we talk about how you can reach those goals, and that's the implementation phase. And I'd like to start by outlining the differences between strategies and tactics because we often see clients confuse the two. So first, a strategy is the way in which you hope to accomplish a goal. So it might be something like a strategy is to create regular touch points with my target audience. And then the tactics are the vehicles you will use to achieve your strategies. For example, a sample tactic tied to this particular strategy might be distribute an email newsletter every month that highlights your services. So again, strategy, I need a regular touch point with my target audience. I need to remind them that I'm there. And then the tactic is where you get into the nitty-gritty of how you're going to do that. So the sample here would be distribute an email newsletter. So I'm going to walk you through, sticking with our Sonko example, the strategies we developed in order to help them achieve their goals. So as you can see on this chart, their goals are in the middle. Increase brand awareness, increase sales among current clients, earn new clients, and engage people in the digital space. So starting at the top left, I'm going to use my pointer here. If you see my green arrow here. Starting at the top left, our first strategy was to establish credibility through targeted earned media exposure. And this speaks directly to the goal of increasing overall brand awareness. Our next strategy in the top right is educate current clients by cross-selling services. And this applies to our second goal of increasing sales among current clients. So as you can see, we're establishing a pattern here of how strategies immediately tie back to goals. The third strategy on the lower right is to become experts in topics relevant to the industry, and this is tied to the goal of earning new clients. If they have exposure to your expertise, they will see you and want to work with you. And then the final strategy in the lower left is to revamp the online presence of the brand to support organic search and to give them a social media identity. And this directly speaks to the goal of engaging people in the digital space. So you can start to see how the goals tie back to the strategies and how everything works together. And then on this slide, we've added another layer to the chart by adding the tactics underneath the strategies. And I'll point out a few of these, and then after this slide we're going to break again so that you can write down some of your own strategies and tactics. But let's start again at this top left. One way you might establish credibility is through targeted earned media exposure and promoting seasonal topics if your business has a seasonal nature to it like this particular one does. Also, commenting on industry trends when they're part of the news cycle through a proactive media relations strategy can help you achieve your goals and meet your strategy requirements. And then lending your expert opinion as a media spokesperson or community speaker on a topic relevant to your business is another way to establish your credibility, and by doing that you are again increasing your brand awareness. Moving over to the top right. In order to cross-sell your services, in order to educate your clients, you may want to showcase how broad your services are on your website. And this again is another opportunity like the sample strategy and tactic we went over a couple slides ago. Create regular touch points that include information about a variety of services through an email marketing strategy, and continuously enhance your SEO. And as you start to work through this type of chart, you often see some of the strategies are replicated. But if we can get a formula down to cross-sell services to our clients by educating them and doing that on the website, we're also serving this dual strategy of driving more people to the digital space. So these all start to work together as you get into some of the nitty-gritty tactics. Another strategy we've outlined is becoming experts on topics relevant to your industry, and that's in the lower right. One tactic that might help showcase your expertise is through a series of online videos, and of course always being willing to lend yourself as a media spokesperson if and when spot opportunities arise. And this speaks to establishing credibility. So we need another arrow that goes across here because, again, all of these work together and they're designed to do so. The final strategy example is driving more people to this company's digital properties. And some tactics that might be involved include cross-promoting your offline presence in the online space. So for example, if you have a news story about your business on the news, on television news, you may want to promote it on your social media platforms. That's an example of integrating your offline and online strategies. Also shoring up your social media strategy and making sure your website is optimized for search. So with that, You've got some fresh examples of strategies and tactics. We're going to break again for 1 to 2 minutes. Take a few minutes to write down your strategies and tactics on your worksheet. And just a reminder, strategies are the way in which you accomplish your goals, and tactics are the vehicles you use to achieve your strategies. So I'll give you about 2 minutes for that. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the final step in creating your PR plan, which is determining how you will evaluate its success. And we kind of tend to take a multi-pronged approach to this. So we look at the first slide here, which is outputs. This might include things like the number of media impressions that have been created, the sentiment of the media exposure you received, if it was positive or negative, how the message penetrated your media coverage, and in the digital space it includes things like frequency of posts and email distributions. Next we look at outcomes. These are fed by the outputs. And examples of outcomes might be, are people taking action as a result of what we've put out? Are they attending your events? Are they visiting your website? Are they picking up the phone and calling you for services? And then lastly, what are the business results of the outputs and the outcomes? How did your strategies move the needle? So to determine this, you may need to look at revenue growth, customer satisfaction, or another factor that is tied to your individual goals like staff recruitment and retention. Again, sticking with the Sonko example, I'd like to show you how their results divide into outputs, outcomes, and business results. So starting with outputs, Sonko was able to achieve a 194% increase in Facebook likes and email open rates that still to this day average 46%, which is important because the industry average for email newsletter open rates is around 15%. And these outputs contributed to the outcomes, such as a 35% increase in website traffic and a 5% increase in service calls. And these stats were taken during what would be considered a down year for a landscape company. It was 2011. The city the company is based in received significant snow over the course of a long winter, and that caused a late spring. So it was kind of an oddball year for them anyway, and we were still able to move the needle in a way that we both felt was significant to their business results. Which is the final box on our chart here. Our strategies contributed to a 12% annualized growth for the business over the previous year. So again, a very positive result considering that it's a down year for the market. And this is where the final time we'll break to talk about evaluation. So I want you to take a minute or two and go through your worksheet and write down how you might evaluate the strategies and the tactics that you were able to write down earlier. And then we have potential measurements on here that you may want to consider. So consistency of your message. How is your message received and how is it conveyed across multiple channels? The number of media impressions that were created, your share of voice versus the competition's. If you wrote down a strategy or a tactic as reaching people through face-to-face interactions such as events, you might want to look at attendance. Social media engagement is very important. Analytics on Facebook make it very easy to see who's visiting, and that's an important step in the evaluation process of your social media strategy. your website traffic and analytics. There are a lot of different ways you can track website traffic. We typically use Google Analytics to take a look at how our strategies are impacting those things. Email metrics, so open rates, delivery rates, click-through rates, and how those perform over time. And then if you do online videos, you might want to consider videos. But again, I'll break for a minute or two. This would also be a good time to submit any questions you have through the chat function, as after this we will be wrapping up the presentation. So if you have questions, go ahead and chat them in. And then, like I said, I'll break for a minute or two and let you write down your evaluation strategies. So that concludes today's webinar. Excuse me, sorry about the coughing. We've had several people chat in and ask if we were able to provide the screenshots and the worksheet. You will get all of that later today. I will resend the worksheet when I send the link to the webinar, so you will have a fresh copy of that to print off however many you need. We did have one question chatted in. What would you recommend for the person who feels behind the curve on social media and how to fully optimize social media? We talk to a lot of people who kind of don't know where to start. And so it's a great question, and it's a very common question. You can always call us if you have questions about how to get started. And oftentimes for people who just want to do some preliminary exploring, the best way is, in the social media space at least, is to sign up for an account and just play around a little bit. If your Facebook is an uncharted territory for you, sign up for an account. You know, shore up your privacy settings if you don't want anyone to know you're there. But start playing with it a little bit. See how it works. See how it functions. Check out other businesses, either locally or nationally, that you admire, and see what they use as content and how they engage people, because it varies for business to business. But sometimes it's good to sit back and be a casual observer of any social networks that you're interested in perhaps diving into from a business standpoint, and see how other companies are doing things, and it might give you some ideas about how comfortable you'll be putting your business into that space. And then, like I said, if you just want to talk, if you have questions, you can always just give us a call too, because we're here to help. So, but with that, I should have the webinar link to you later today, along with a copy of the worksheet. Thank you everyone for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and stop the meeting so that the evaluation sheet pops up. But I appreciate your time today, and good luck with your PR planning strategies in 2014. Have a great day.
Thank you. Please stand by.